The Holy Gospel according to St. Mark. Glory to you, O Lord. Then he called the crowd again and said to them, "Listen to me, all of you, and understand. There is nothing outside a person that by going in can defile, but the things that come out are what defile." When he had left the crowd and entered the house, his disciples asked him about the parable. He said to them, "Then do you also fail to understand? Do you not see that whatever goes into a person from the outside cannot defile, since it enters not the heart but the stomach and goes out to the sewer?" Thus he declared all foods clean. And he said, "It is what comes out of a person that defiles, for it is from within, from the human heart, that evil intentions come: fornication, theft, murder, adultery, avarice, wickedness, deceit, licentiousness, envy, slander, pride, folly. All these things come from within, and they defile a person." The Gospel of our Lord. Praise to you, O Christ. When it comes to matters of the heart, I don't know how much we really think about that there's always a broken aspect to our deepest sense of the soul. And that brokenness is where the devil's always chipping away, not just with temptation, but just chipping away at the things that help us to be not only accountable, but to be spiritually attuned to being loving and faithful human beings. If you do not love yourself the right way, how can you love others the way that God wants you to love? If you do not really love God and you're playing lip service, then, whatever comes out of your heart and supposedly preaching or teaching becomes a false gospel. And that's really what Jesus was talking about. He was talking about all the do's of the gospel, all about spirituality. And the difference between the Old Testament and the New is that the Old Testament did not look at all about spirituality in the sense that Jesus radically gave to us to understand. They came up with all the laws, but then all the laws were lost in a sense that they just saw, well, you're not doing this, so you can't be this or can't be that. And the Old Testament, in many senses as well, these rituals and regulations and these laws and things just built up kind of the muck at the bottom of those people's souls of being judgmental, being cruel, doing different other sins. And human nature is something that we're stuck with because it is an aspect of the self that is going to be in that battle. It's going to be in that battle continually. It's been really a profound blessing. I've been having a lot of aha moments in my ministry. And why do I say that? Because maybe what I was like 10 years ago, I'm a much different person here and now and today. And I was realizing I was studying with a dear friend the other day, and I was realizing, oh my gosh, I'm really getting good at remembering things about the people I I've been ministering to every day. And it's like it's becoming natural. And it's becoming natural to see how best I can open my heart to be more empathetic. And when God seems to close one door, He opens another. We all have tragic things happen in our lives that in some senses teach us a lesson, but it's not all a one-sided lesson. It is something we learn through our tears of finding out our weaknesses and things that have corrupted our hearts. And that, I have a beautiful image on my social media page that shows someone shooting arrows through their mouth at the person. And sometimes that's easy to do when we get angry or misunderstood. And but then again, we have to remember all of us are human beings. All of us have weaknesses. All of us have weaknesses that only get stronger when we become prideful. When we, in a sense, build up upon those things that truly become evil. When we cannot forgive, when we cannot forget, and we can't move on. Lot turned to a pillar of salt, we know that. And all those Pharisees and scribes and everybody else must have heard Jesus giving or sharing those beautiful be the attitude of God. And they still crucified him anyway because he was upsetting the apple cart. And Jesus was upsetting the apple cart even more here, because I'm sure the Pharisees heard this, when he declared all foods clean. Oh, he's going against our rules and regulations and laws. But then he's talking about that they couldn't have no compassion for anybody. They were just in it for their own kind of closed-minded little self-righteous world. Self-righteousness is a sin. But that daily battle, some preachers don't like to talk about spiritual warfare. But I made this a couple years ago, and what I love about this is that I did a Photoshop where I put my face behind this female warrior's mask, and that's a scene from the Lord of the Rings that I just put myself in there. But you've got to see yourself in that armor, and you see yourself in that armor when the devil is going to press and remind you and condemn you of all the things that you, that you should have grown from. The old nature is a reality. It's not like we're automatically new, like some people want to just say, well, that's what we are, period. But they're not listening to what we have a battle with. The devil loves to try to crack away at the foundation of that new nature mustard seed within our hearts, and loves to have us have those ugly things come out of our heart, not only in what we say, but what we do to others, how we hurt others. And though, we have a conviction or a condemnation to feel that we're doing the right things. Many years ago, and, it's so funny how God just puts that into your heart to remember. I remember when I would, just before I was getting ready to sit down and start to do something, and start drawing and start painting, Some godless people are mowing outside. Oops. I'd have to have that moment of silence. That moment of silence that makes me think about, I need to focus, Lord. What am I going to be doing here? Art was a strange thing. It was my artist self was really that very, 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 very introverted person. And this was the last painting I ever made in 2005. And it was like that was the last part of my old self that God needed me to transform and to turn into and grow into my new self, my new nature self. None of us can say that we're 100% new nature and that's it. No. We're always going to have the devil chip away at us. And when the devil is truly successful is when you hear a lot of false gospels that have self-concerned, afflict the afflicted and comfort the comfortable messages, and have, in a sense, feeding the new golden calf. We have made our new Baal. We have our new golden calf by the things we have said and by the things we have done. Jesus needs us, and he really wanted to teach us what way we are supposed to be doing. The don'ts are very easy to do. And it is a battle between you and the devil. When you realize how God is changing your path, that's when spiritual growth truly begins. And I was sharing with my dear pastor. I still consider him a pastor and now a friend. Boundaries, break down those boundaries like Philip and the eunuch. Pastors can have friends too. Pastors are human beings. And, God bless him. I said, I shared that aha moment I had where I was going to see a patient that was really suffering spiritually. Their family member had drug addiction problems, and they have lived a very lonely life for a long time. And my heart felt, or has been feeling, more into his story enough where I can minister to him, where, I remembered the funny comment that they made about trying to quit smoking and, just melting candy and pouring it over a fruit to eat instead of smoking. And that person automatically smiled and was just, it had a little moment of joy with that little bit of levity to then really get down to sharing empathy, how through the power of prayer, and Paul talks about that, pray in the Spirit at all times, in every prayer and supplication, to help to lift that spiritual pain from that person whose only family member is killing themselves with a horrible drug addiction. It's a terrible enough reality that the ministry that I do during the week is helping to hold their spiritual hands as they journey on to the road of their eventual death. But to continue to press the envelope of, I pray for you to be hopeful. I pray for you to learn how to forgive. I pray for you to see that we're all guilty, and that if you cannot accept the truth of how things truly are, how can you truly live and love? And this gospel, I'm not shooting arrows from my mouth. My mouth, the Lord is using for His Spirit to shoot little clouds of hearts and love. I am in my broken self that Christ has been making whole, and that the devil, I keep doing that battle and donning that armor, keeps trying to chip away at. And, it's interesting too when we think of this gospel, Jesus saying this, all these evil things come from within and they defile a person. From within the human heart, that evil intentions come. We are very glad for our DVRs, our VHS machines, if we still have those, or Blu-rays or whatever, or DVDs, to not be hearing all this mudslinging and all these ugly words being said back and forth, so we can win. Because we want the power, we want the control, we think we can do things better. Election years, I think, are just a horrible time for, I think, people, especially in America, where we're just being bombarded with listening to things coming out of people's mouths that we can either get self-righteous and stand behind, and that whole thing of growing in unity, not conformity, is lost. That whole thing of being united as a child of grace and promise, as a child of God, is lost to a darkness of power and difference. I mean, the Romans during the whole entire time, the whole 3 years that Jesus was doing his major ministry, they occupied and they had as advertisements along the roads in Jerusalem of people crucified. Say, hey, if you come up against us, this is what happens. What do you think that does to the human spirit? And then, the Pharisees who proclaimed we are the disciple of Moses. They were not following God's commandments, because they used politics as a death work to, take out Jesus. They were probably sitting somewhere and watching Jesus deliver the Beatitudes. And they're like, oh, this guy's pushing the envelope here. And they didn't even have their heart open enough to hear. Their hearts were so hardened, their hearts were so full of the muck of this willfulness that we got to have our power and control, and we got to do this and do that, that they were not preserving being the chosen children in the right way. We are all chosen by God in some way, as we should all pray against war. We should pray against violence. We should live and say against violence and speak the truth. What you say and what you do, everything that Jesus has taught us is spiritual food. When I'm trying to help someone, and I hate using that word try, but as I say, sometimes I do feel like a used car salesman when I am really trying to have someone understand what spiritual care means. People need God. People need to have someone who has compassion to hold their hand and walk with them spiritually for that dark night of the soul of that their life is coming to some kind of an end. And there's no good way about it. Hospice ministry is messy work. It is messy for not only the chaplain, it's messy for the social worker, it's messy for the nurses, and really messy and dysfunctional and with families. What a lot of things that are said by some family members are coming from their anger of not accepting or their fear of their loved one dying. And I share these nuggets with you to just think about whatever work we are doing in the world. In some senses, we are like at that customer service line. And there's going to be some people who just say, well, this isn't just the right thing for me. Can I get my money back? And then you help them, and they're nice, and you say, thank you, have a nice day. And then there's someone who's going to be like, and then you have to talk to them. And you have to try to get them down to a plane of let's have a conversation here, let's be at peace, okay? Without saying that, but doing things and using comforting words to diffuse and to say that I'm really listening. I think the whole gift of really listening to someone is not just the pastor's job to be the great listener, but it should be every human being's journey. I hate when people argue. When I was younger, I used to hear arguments where I'd hear a drum roll in the back, and I was wondering how they were going to get worse and stronger. And, I used to want to go run and hide in my room. And now as adults, when we get in arguments with others, and you are making the effort to talk to them, and they're just shouting you down, no, but they're not listening. They're speaking at you. The Pharisees probably spoke a lot at Jesus, but did little listening. They only listened enough to say that this guy's a threat, that his radical message of this spiritual reality that we truly need to develop and grow is no. It's giving the people some kind of power, and then today it's taken many faces of that same kind of battle, where people expect churchianity. Oh, you're just here to throw a Bible at my head. I don't go to any church. I don't belong to any group. I don't know. And I'm like, but you're a human being. And now you're a human being and you have purpose. You exist. And I know I've said that before, that I thank God that God had me take existentialism when I was an art student, because that still applies. And getting people to break down the barriers. We need to break down the barriers within to God, which we rebel all the time. And Paul, his beautiful letter, he needed to say to them that, you're going to come up against a lot. That favorite Isaiah passage I have, where I stood like flint against all that was coming at me. And I gave my cheek to those who pulled the beard or pulled the whiskers. Wherever we go, whatever we do, we must let that holy love of God break through and change us and be that beautiful melody in our hearts that sings a song of yes, God, yes, God. When the world says no, you are saying yes, and you are teaching me, and you are transforming, you are making me a new person. But it's going to take a lifetime. It's going to take a lifetime when I keep growing and going with your word. And I don't want to get against your gospel. I want to be doing your dues. I want to be a doer, as your brother James said, a doer of the word. Loving and gracious God, help us to grow and go with your word and have that word clean our hearts, sanctify our souls. And yes, it is a lifetime process. And yes, that mustard seed will become a bush or a tree by the end of our earthly tapestry journey. But help us, Lord, to say new and not defile your gospel with our selfishness, or the things, that willfulness that the devil loves to make an easy thing for us. In your most precious name, amen.